One of my last videos was all about asking the community what Gray Zone Warfare needed most, and after reading through all of your comments, one thing kept popping up over and over again: people wanted better tasking. Not because the current task system is terrible, but because after a while it starts to feel repetitive, especially when you're trying to play with friends. Well, here we are again with another update from Madfinger Games. Patch 0.4.5 just released, and one of the biggest features in this update is a major topic we've been talking about on this channel, and that's squad task sharing. Now at first glance you might think, well, did they do it right? But after reading through the patch notes, not only do I think they did it right, but they also made some major changes that 99% of the community has been asking for. Now this patch isn't adding massive new content, but Madfinger Games shows they are just focusing on fixing some of the most frustrating things players deal with every time they log in. So before you ask, no, we did not get an update on the solution to cheaters or the ban wave we thought we would have coming with this update, but hopefully soon on that. Now let's dive into the patch. If you've ever played Gray Zone Warfare with your friends, you've probably experienced this. One person is working on one task, another person can't even see the task on their map. And before long, your squad is split up and you're doing completely different objectives. And what should have been a fun night playing together turns into everyone running around and doing their own thing. It's something the community has been asking Madfingers to improve ever since 0.4 has been released. Well, with 0.4.5, squad task sharing has finally arrived. Now that the squad leader can share eligible tasks with the rest of the group, as long as everyone has the correct vendor unlocked, meets the task requirements, and is deployed on the same server. That means if you did not progress in the main storyline and the person that is the squad lead does have a certain main storyline quest unlocked and a vendor unlocked such as Banshee, but the new player to the server or to the game in general does not have Banshee unlocked, they would not be able to do this task. So you'd have to go back and do tasks to catch them up to speed, so to speak, like you would in most games anyway. To some people, this might sound like a simple quality of life feature though, but I think it's much bigger than that. Gray Zone has always been a game that's more enjoyable with friends. These changes remove one of the biggest barriers that stopped squads from naturally progressing together and naturally forming to do tasks together. Instead of asking, what task are you on, to your friend, you can spend more time actually playing the game together. And I have a feeling this is one of those updates people will appreciate more over the next few weeks and coming into the next few updates. Not to mention those who are waiting for 0.5 update, you have something to look forward to. Another change that I don't think enough people are talking about is the Coma system. At first, I almost skipped over it because it sounded like a pretty small adjustment, just making comas have a higher chance of happening. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it perfectly fits with the squad task sharing. Now, instead of immediately dying during certain shared survival tasks, players enter a coma state and can be revived by their teammates with the revive window extended to 8 minutes. Now, what does this mean? It means when you, instead of your teammate just getting one tapped and having to respawn, you can actually revive them when they're in this coma state. If you have not experienced that before, that's just kind of how it works. You walk up to them, you press F to interact, and then you'll have options to hopefully fix them and not have them die out on you. I actually love this change, not because it makes the game easier, but because it creates those moments where your squad has a decision to make. Do I risk pushing into the enemy territory to save your teammate? Do you clear the area first? Do you split up? That timer matters now. Those kinds of moments are what creates these memorable stories and makes the game even more enjoyable because, again, we want to play with our friends. And if you're someone who spends most of your time playing PvP, there are a few changes here that I think you're gonna like. Probably the biggest one is the combat outpost cooldown. Once a cop has been captured, it can't immediately be captured again for 30 minutes. Previously, you could retake cops immediately. On top of that, conflict zones have been expanded to a 400-meter diameter, and the timer of the zone refreshes when a player is killed inside of it. Previously, conflict zones were 100-meter diameter, and the timer would continue from the first shot hit on a player until the zone disappears, resulting in kind of confusing fights sometimes. Additionally, players can no longer respawn at the nearest cop after dying in a conflict zone. They'll return to the FOB or main base instead, unless you are the first victim that resulted in the creation of that conflict zone, in which case you will respawn at the nearest cop. This is to help the people who are the first person out of a fight, and it's kind of frustrating hearing your team having a great fun fight while you're just sitting at main base. To me, these changes all point towards one goal: making fights actually matter. One of the biggest complaints from PvP players has always been how quickly people could jump right back into the same fight. I mean, you would have guys run at you in waves of just knives, just trying to hope to get the kill and stop you from taking the cop. Sometimes you'd win an engagement only to have the exact same players back a minute later, and now it feels like Madfinger Games is trying to make those victories carry a little bit more weight. I don't think these changes are going to magically fix PvP overnight, but I do think they're moving things in the right direction. I'm really interested to see what the community thinks after spending a few days with these changes. Now, this patch isn't packed with flashy new content, as I said before, but it's filled with all kinds of fixes that players will notice over hundreds of hours of playing the game, and I'll just kind of run through them. They have added DLSS 4.5 support, AI spawning fixes where the AI would just kind of appear in front of you, but they were actually spawning underneath the ground. AI death audio fix where they would still be grunting after their death. Scope rendering fixes, they were having some graphical issues there. Player invulnerability bug fixes, we had some players actually becoming invincible with mags and pawn mags being dumped into them. SIG MCX handguard fix, I am not aware of what that was. Loot collision fixes, there was loot spawning inside of objects or inside of each other. And helicopter pathing improvements, from your main base to specific LZs you would go through trees, which was kind of immersion breaking. Now, overall, I actually think this is really a healthy update for Gray Zone Warfare. No, it's not Ground Zero, it's not the creation or release of hideouts, and it's not the crafting system that they've been talking about. It's definitely not the update 0.5 that we're looking forward to, but I don't think every patch needs to completely reinvent the game. Sometimes the most important updates are the ones that quietly improve the experience every single time you log in. What's interesting to me is that this patch lines up almost perfectly with the conversations we've been having recently. Players wanted better reasons to squad up. Players wanted the task system to feel less frustrating. Players wanted quality of life improvements that respected their time and made it feel more rewarding when they put in their time. And while this patch doesn't solve every issue overnight, I do think it's another step in the right direction. If Madfinger keeps stacking up like this while continuing to work towards 0.5, I honestly think the game will be in a much stronger position by the time those larger systems arrive. Personally, I'd much rather see improvements like these continue than have the developers rush bigger features before they're even close to being ready. And I guess that's the life of an early access game, because people tend to forget that we did actually pay not just to purchase a game, but we paid for early access of this game. So every patch matters and every feedback matters, so make sure you're hitting Shift plus F12 when in game and providing that feedback, and try to be constructive criticism, because they've been known to neglect people who are extremely negative. Now, after everything we just discussed, and I'm sure there is some things that I may have missed, so make sure you go and read the patch notes yourself, but I'm very curious what you guys think about this update. Is squad task sharing enough to get you and your friends playing together again? Do you think these PvP changes are going to improve the experience? Or are you still waiting for update 0.5 before jumping back in? But hey, there's something to look forward to now. Let me know down below, because after reading through all your comments over the past couple of weeks, I have a feeling this discussion is going to get very interesting across the board. Let's see what you guys think. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.